Welcome to Shotgun Story, the podcast that has conversations with indie creators about music, meaning, and the point of it all, so that you may be inspired by the journeys of other artists who are doing it for themselves, and maybe gain a little more understanding as to why it matters quite so much that you keep creating. Bruce Dennill is a writer, an arts critic, and a musician based in Johannesburg, and I have him on the line. Hi, Bruce.
Hello. It's so good to talk to somebody. Not live in my hole in the back there, pretending to have friends.
That's so nice to connect, I agree. In fact, I remember the first time I met you, I think, was at an Andy McGibbon's guitar night.
It was. Because I remember seeing the word shotgun on the listing, and I was like, oh boy, what have we got ourselves in for? I had no clue, but it was lovely. I remember it was a very lacquer gig. Yeah, lots of lovely people on that bill. It was fantastic.
It was
a long time ago. We were so young.
We were so young. And in fact, those Andy McGibbon's nights were so beautiful.
They were fantastic. They're one of those things where the audience knows what they want and act like they want it. So they sit and listen and they interact and they buy things. Oh, the good old days.
Oh, yeah. So rare as well.
Yes. We miss you, Andy.
We do.
Yeah.
Bruce, why music? What drew you here?
Wait, it's a long time. I started playing the piano when I was 7, I think. About 7 years old. Kind of because my parents said so. But it wasn't one of those things where I grew up in a musical household and this and that. My dad is like an Andre Rieu fan. Sorry, Dad. But, you often hear people saying, oh, I grew up and my mom listened to Elvis all day and this, and we had records lying. That wasn't so much the thing. But that said, my folks always encouraged music. And unfortunately for me, I discovered football at about 9 or so. And then as a 9-year-old boy, was way too lazy to practice piano when I could rather be outside kicking a football. So I gave up on that. But then picked up a guitar, an acoustic guitar, when I was about 13 and taught myself that. And yeah, here we are many years later. I won't say how many, but many. Started songwriting at about 16 because that's when I had my heart broken the first time. So that's what you have to do, I think. That's the start button for all songwriting, isn't it? I don't know.
You know it.
And then have been doing that ever since as well. So yeah, and then but also I've always been a huge music fan in terms of listening. But as I say, with that kind of limited exposure, it was very interesting because I had to kind of find my own way with the resources that you had, you know. One thing, I mean, if you remember, you don't do it so much now, but you know, when I was growing up, if your mom went into the shop and you were in the car, you were left in the car because it was just easier in the parking lot. I think that's where I got most of my musical education, was sitting in the car in the parking lot somewhere. Yeah, just playing the radio to keep myself busy until she had done the shopping or finished her meeting or whatever. My mom is a great mom. Please don't let this reflect badly.
I think all our moms did it.
Look how much we learned. Yeah.
So now, if you were to look at your career as a timeline, because you have two careers within this one body of Bruce, your career as a musician and your career as an arts critic and a writer. Looking at the whole package, could you give me 3 to 5 highlights of those careers that would set the scene for anyone listening who hasn't heard your music or hasn't heard of you?
Okay, so I think Graceland, the Paul Simon album, so that was 86, 87. That was the album that it made me think I could make music, and it made me think that I wanted to make music. And it made me appreciate music because it was just this whole thing. Obviously, I'd heard a lot of South African sounds, a lot of South African music. I'd heard American and other UK sounds and whatever. And that was the first one that for me really exposed me to that kind of, there's so much different music here. There's so much different culture here in one place and one output and one creative thing. And that was just so incredibly exciting to me. So that was a big spike that got me on the road. As I say, I mean, I was still young then. I was still kicking football around, but that's really driven me along the way. bands that I was a big fan of at the time were artists, people like Robin Auld and Bright Blue. So that same kind of vibe where there's that unmistakable South Africanness to the sound. But that's not why I'm listening. I'm not going, well, I'm hugely patriotic, so let me make sure it mentions Cape Town or something, for it to be valid. That was never the issue. I just loved their sound, and I loved, obviously, hearing their influences come through, not knowing what those were as a boy, but still understanding that was something that really spoke to me. So to go into later highlights, I mean, as a varsity student gigging a hell of a lot, I was in a band at the time called Forest, played a lot with Sugar Drive and that kind of stuff. But one of the big highlights then in an early part of my career was playing with Bright Blue. So we supported them at Wings Beat Bar in Braamfontein, with a mixing desk hanging off the wall on a cable, and you had to kind of do your own sound at an angle, but it was fantastic. Karma from Henry H. She was at varsity with me, so we sort of came through that scene a little bit together. So that was a huge thing. And then Robin as well is now a friend. Robin is now punting my music for film soundtracks on his label, which is just a mind warp to me. I mean, I saw him a few weeks ago in Cape Town. We had lunch together. So that kind of curve is really, really special to me. That sort of relationship building within the art form kind of thing is incredible for me. On the writing side, I actually studied zoology for some reason. As I said earlier, I was catching snakes and scorpions out in the middle of nowhere as a kid. So I think that all came through. It's halfway through the degree, figured out that writing was what I wanted to do. And started freelancing. And then the day after I wrote my final exam, started working on magazines. One of which was a little magazine called The Entertainer, which I started editing at all of whatever I was, 20-something. Just that passion for, not only a passion for art, for making it, but also listening to it, for watching it, for reading it. But also just the way my head works is that I'm the sort of person, if we went and watched a movie together, I'd want to come home and kind of unpack it. And think about it and analyze it and whatever. Not in a sort of horribly geeky way or whatever, but just to, I think there's meaning. If somebody listens to one of your songs, you don't want them to go away only and think, oh, that was pretty. That's not, you put much more effort into it than that was pretty. So I really loved doing all of that. And so it made its way into my writing. And I thought, if I'm going to love listening to stuff and watching stuff and writing stuff and whatever, I might as well get paid for it. And that's where the art critic stuff came in. So I've been doing that since the mid-90s, late 90s as a professional. And I mean, so many highlights there. Very, very long list of incredible artists that I've been able to meet and talk to. I've chatted to Dave Matthews 3 times or whatever. It's such a wonderful, wonderful bloke. Actually, I mean, this very chair that I'm sitting in here, I was interviewing him sort of like this at one point, and my wife walked past and sort of mouthed, "Say hi," just as a joke, So I said, "Dave, my wife says hi." And he says, "Put me on." So I gave him the phone and they had a chat about ironing. I remember she was on her way to fold ironing or something, and they had a chat about best way to fold ironing. He's just a lovely, lovely man. But loads of fantastic artists that I've interviewed live and over the phone. I was the arts editor at The Citizen for many years, so that gave me a whole lot of access to incredible stuff. I often have people say, you're really lucky to be able to do what you do, which I know, but I'm also, if those are whoever accountants or whatever they do saying that to me, then I'm going, well, if this is so good, why aren't you doing it? So same thing. I think if you come off stage after a great gig, people are like, I wish I could do that. And have you tried? Come on.
Yeah, I must say it's so interesting because the idea of someone coming up to you after a performance to say they wish they could do it, I would never encourage someone to do art unless they are so pulled that they won't do something else. I think that it's such a hard life.
It is. I think, what's the best way to say it? You must discover that you can't not do it.
Yes.
If you're able to not do it, then that's probably not a bad idea. Keep it as a hobby.
Yes.
But if you can't not do it, then you won't stop. And it might be slow, and it might be time in between, or you might be writing things every day, but it will always be super important, and the people involved in it will always be super important. The value of it will always be incredibly high. So that's also something where there's an overlap as an artist and as a critic, is that sort of understanding the value of art, whatever it is. So again, if I listen to one of your songs and I can hear emotion, whatever it is, happiness, sadness, pain in your voice, there's already another whole aspect of value there. And if it talks to a situation that I'm in, then there's no whole package of value there. And if it's got a lovely melody and this and that, and the next thing, and the production's good, there's all sorts of other blah, 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 and then so you end up with this thing, your appreciation of it is much more profound. Yeah.
Yeah. Phew. When you spoke about earlier relationship building within the arts, I have to say that's where the magic is, particularly because when you connect with other artists and people who are doing it as well, and there's like a sizzle of energy, and you are shifted. I mean, it's magnificent.
It's wonderful. It really is.
And so what about your ultimate why? What drives you to create music?
I think to touch on that thing again, I can't not. I know that sounds a bit random, but it's my default is writing. So I hardly ever just watch TV, for instance. I need something to do with my hands. So I often have the laptop open and I'm writing, or because I have a blog and an arts, it's an online arts mag and whatever. So I write stories for that, or I'm working on songs. Although songs, for whatever reason, I still tend to write in a notebook. We'll chat about that just now. But it's what drives me to create, I think, is also, as I was saying just now, as a critic, that need to unpack, to understand something. So to create, as a songwriter, a lot of my stuff is, I suppose, analytical is the wrong word, but it's exploring something. It's exploring emotions. So it's not going, I felt like that and leaving it there. It's going, I felt like that and I don't know how to deal with that. And here's my confusion, and here's my insight, and here's my pain, happiness, joy, whatever it might be. And so that's very complicated. Verse, chorus, end. And, so that you might get to the end of the song and go, oh, wow, well, there's, I don't have closure here. And I'm going, well, of course you don't, but you don't have closure in your relationship with the girl that you can't get hold of because whatever, she's turned her phone off, and you don't have closure with your mom who you haven't seen for a year because of COVID, and you don't have, these are real things that we deal with. And I think I find it very useful, but I'm not doing it as a sort of therapy thing, but I find it very useful to explore that. And it does connect with people. You get a lot of people saying, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, or this really spoke to me, or whatever it is, those lovely comments that we hope will come up at the end of the gig. Yeah.
Now, some of your tracks have been picked up for TV shows, hey?
Yeah.
Now, talk a bit about that.
Well, that's pretty weird because, a lot of them, I've got a publishing deal now with Neil Solomon, Passage One Music. Mm-hmm. Neil and Taryn Warwick, so they run Passage One Music, which is it's publishing. So a lot of what they do is that kind of thing. But it started quite a while back. There was a program called Going Nowhere Slowly, sort of very laid back travelogue kind of thing. Ashley Dowds was one of the presenters, and we had also one of those funny weird deals that you sign when you're 12, and you're not really sure how it works and whatever. And it just arrived on TV, and we got a double disc thing. We had one song on each disc that was the soundtrack, and okay, so that happened, that worked. But it was really, really cool because you just get, again, there it's this moody thing. They're driving a red Cadillac or whatever it was across the Karoo, and your song's playing in the background, and it's giving it this emotion.
What a vibe.
I know, it's incredible. Neil's got vast experience in that area, so that's fantastic because he had the connections, and I had a lot of songs on Isidingo, for instance.
Wonderful.
And again, he's listening to it and he's going, well, they need something, there's a fight scene or something, so we'll put this in, or there's somebody feeling morose or whatever, depending on what song they need, what mood they need. And I really love that feeling of being able to add to the kind of emotional quality of something. Because again, as singer-songwriters, I think, emotions are at least as important to what we do as hooks or arrangements or whatever sound. We want an emotional impact as well as sound. So I think that's important. Yeah,
absolutely. So now you're a dad as well. I know you haven't made the decision to make music full time, but have you noticed whether parenting has impacted either your career in music or your music at all?
Well, career-wise, yes. You know the challenges, and as I mentioned earlier, you're much braver than most of us in terms of trying to juggle both of them. I wouldn't want to be doing the many gigs and the late night gigs, the time away stuff I wouldn't want to be doing for obvious reasons. But in terms of does music make our life together richer? Yes, definitely. It's I have this wonderful thing if we're playing Spotify or something, the girls will often, because I play my mixes for them, all the songs when they're released and whatever, and get some input. And so I often have this thing where somebody's coming through the speakers and they, oh, look, sounds like you, Dad, or is that you, Dad? And you're going, oh, well, no, that's Eric Clapton, but thank you, or something, etc. And they both love their music. My eldest daughter plays the piano. My youngest has a ukulele, which it's a one chord issue at the moment, but she's working on it. But they both love the music, love to sing. My wife also sings. She was actually backing vocalist in one of my bands back in the day. So yeah, we love music. Is a communal thing. We always swap whoever's turn it is to put on Spotify when we having meals. So you get a wide range of weird stuff. But yeah, no, it's a unifying thing. It's a good part of the fabric. I haven't written kind of Butterfly Kisses or something like that, though. It hasn't had that sort of inspirational lyrical impact. As I say, I tend to find it's more lyrical stuff for me is more conceptual. It's more kind of analyzing a feeling or a perspective or something. So it tends not to be. I'm glad that your puppy came home. I'm not sure. I don't think I do a very good job of that kind of song.
So now, there's COVID, which has in itself had an effect on the music industry. But what are some of the challenges that you've observed and had impacting you? And obviously as an arts critic, you know a lot of musicians and you see, what are some of the challenges facing musicians today?
There being too much music is a big deal. So again, if you and I have done a fair amount of music, we've been in it for a fair amount of time, and that will be the case for quite a lot of people. And then, if you've got 20 songs or 25 songs or 400 songs or whatever in the system in some way, there'll be some sort of traction somewhere and you'll get noticed somewhere. But again, it's not, even then it's unlikely without full-time marketing help or investment in that sort of thing, because again, it does have this is a challenge and a problem, is that it has very little to do with talent or the quality of the output. It has more to do with how much marketing muscle you have. And we've talked about relationships a few times. A lot of it is who you know in terms of success, and can you get on that playlist? Well, depends if you know who's hosting the show or whatever. I'm not talking about sort of payola or anything weird like that. I'm just saying it's those are tough things. There are limited channels and very, very, very many options for those channels. So that's the one thing. There is the aspect of venues being a problem, pandemic or no pandemic. But I must say, I must qualify this as a solo singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar. I do also think that sometimes people get a bit too focused on that as a problem, in that you and I can both pick up a guitar now and start singing, and wherever we are then is the venue, which could be the side of the road. It could be it could be a pub, it could be a concert hall. But we don't need much more than that. But that's, as I say, qualified because that's my kind of output. If I'm somebody who's got a full band who needs this, that, or the next thing, it's going to be a much bigger problem. I think also just in many ways we're kind of, you'll get listeners or music fans who go looking for either what they think they'll like or willingly wanting to go and explore, to go, I have no idea what this is. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen. Mm-hmm. Whereas because of the kind of huge success of similar sounding people, your average pop chart or whatever, there's a similar kind of production sound. There's a similar arrangement, similar keys, similar melodies. And it's not to say any of it is bad, but it is similar. So if you're violently different, or even vaguely different, or if you're more sincere, or if you're a higher risk taker, or if your song is longer or something, you're outside just that niche. Again, as a critic, often I listen to the quality of songwriting. Again, I'm a critic who's a songwriter and a musician, blah, blah, and a singer and whatever. So you're going, the quality of the songwriting or the singing and the singing sometimes, etc., is not better than mine. But this person is, 1,000 times more successful in material terms. They're earning more money, they're filling stadiums, whatever it might be. And I think maybe the single big challenge is that you kind of need to hit a sweet spot somewhere, which you can't control necessarily, where whatever the superstar DJ gives you a chance on his show, or if I've had stuff on TV, on the TV shows, but whatever, that wasn't, Isidingo didn't have the, whatever, Orange County or Grey's Anatomy reach in terms of its soundtrack, or whatever it might be. If something had happened there and this person had seen me play and I had been available to tour then, and all of that stuff, you need all of those things to intersect so that your undoubted talents can make it into a channel which everybody is exposed to. Spotify and all of these things are wonderful in terms of, letting you and I be heard in Siberia or, Tierra del Fuego or something. But the guy across the road doesn't know I play guitar or something. And it's just, hitting that sweet spot, I think, is the massive challenge. But there's not a lot you can do to plan other than to go, let's get as many people on board in terms of agents and marketing people and song pushers and et cetera, all of which takes money you may not have. Yeah.
And how have you noticed musicians getting creative now during these COVID times to make a living?
To make a living is the tough bit. There's all of the online concerts and stuff that you can do. But as with anybody, I'm a fan of yours, but
thank you.
Pleasure. But from a budget point of view, if you were playing every week at a venue close to me, I still wouldn't want to come to every gig. And not only from a budget point of view, but also because I'd have heard all your stuff 16 times. And this is the thing with me. I've got lovely fans who have been with me a long time, but kind of one of the challenges when people are with you a long time is that they know your stuff and they don't need to hear the same stuff again. You're probably not going to have a gig where you play only new stuff, because then half of the other people will feel, confused and they won't have a clue what's going on. So I think the challenge in this time, is to still remain appealing when you don't have the sort of ambiance of a venue or the big sound setup, or the power of a band. You can get it on a sort of well-produced video or something, but it's just more expensive and more difficult and all the rest of it. Whereas if you were playing at a festival with a great setup and a great sound man or something, the place is buzzing and people are in a certain mood, and it's loud and it gets into your system. I have been incredibly impressed with the number of people, artists, of musicians, but also theatre people, TV people, just getting on board to help other artists. So a lot of these, I've been very privileged to be involved in a couple of these sort of fundraising gigs or shows, where they film you alone or whatever, or you do your stream in a slot and whatever, and somebody's producing this amazing thing backstage. So I've been incredibly, as I say, I think there's some very special people in our scene who put in an enormous amount of work into helping other people, into raising money for them. And that's ongoing. Robin Auld, who we've mentioned, he's starting a thing now where he's working his way through his album, but playing his albums all the way through, in a single gig. And I think that's an interesting way of keeping people on board if you're a well-known name, is to then go, this came out in 1991 and there were these 3 big hits on it, but I'm playing it track 1 to track 12, and that's the gig, and, support me here, whatever the system is. A lot of videos. As a critic, I'm getting a lot of videos to review in terms of the way people are releasing their singles.
It's interesting.
So it is interesting because the figures, when I go and review them, and you can see how many times it's been played on YouTube or whatever, the figures are not huge. But I think for people like ourselves, if we are, trying to run families and things as well, if you're stuck at home, you do have a little bit more downtime. You're not driving around as much. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. And if you can figure out some way to put a decent video together, obviously, again, we're not going to get to the sound stages. We're not going to get to studios necessarily. But a lot of people are using that as a way of producing stuff. So, I mean, there was one recently, again, lovely production values, but essentially she walked down the road, what looked like the Free State somewhere, very beautiful countryside, towards the camera, and then met the guy at the end, kind of thing. I've spoiled the whole thing, but I won't tell you who it was. But that was the whole concept for the video. And you're going, it's fairly boring as a concept, but it was made to look great, and it suited the song and the theme of the song, and it costs next to nothing. So I think, people are figuring out ways to do that. I mean, stuff like you and this podcast. I'm not sure that this would have been an option if you were, currently doing a 6-night stint in Windhoek or something as part of your tour. So I think people are also finding out. I've also started with Stefan Voss. We started a podcast called The Chorus, which is also all about arts and culture, talking about all these kinds of things, having some guests, making noise, really, playing some of our songs, or playing original songs on air, and tasting whiskey because that's important. These kinds of things. So I think people are, again, I think it's maybe tying to what we earlier were talking about, is that it if you are a person who can't not art, you're going, well, I'm frustrated now because I can't gig. This is something you and I can't do. I can't gig, so what am I going to replace gigging with? And it might be a podcast. It might be getting involved in these other fundraising projects. It might be making video. It might be writing a lot more songs. Again, I've always been a fairly prolific writer, but I know a lot of people who are writing much more than they used to, because what else are they going to do? And also, if you are definitely, officially, absolutely, in a disciplined manner, working at home, as far as your boss knows, but you're actually writing a song, then you have that option now, which you couldn't really do in your high-rise building, in your suit in Sandton or whatever, Yeah.
Absolutely. So now, what advice would you give independent artists and creatives to make them keep doing this?
Don't listen to naysayers. Number one, keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop. The thing is, the naysayers might be right. I'm not saying naysayers, and if you want to lump in critics, naysayers for me are different to critics. Critics are hopefully people who are doing something constructive and productive. I'm saying if somebody just writes you off, don't listen to them, because A, they haven't done what you've done, and they haven't done it in the way that you've done it. And B, they very likely don't have the slightest clue what they're talking about. So don't stop, because just from an emotional point of view, all of that kind of stuff, if you let somebody else talk you out of being true to that part of you, there are more long-term and heavy effects than just not having a song out or finishing a book or something. The other thing is, if you stop, you don't get better. Particularly if you're somebody who has another living to make, or a full life in some other way or whatever. The more you do it, the better you'll get. The more songs you write. If you have written 400 songs, the chances of there being 20 good ones are a hell of a lot higher than if you've written 20 songs. So keep going, keep playing. I heard you in one of your interviews going about being disciplined about your scales and this and that and the next thing. If you want to be a better player, you have to do the work. You've got to put in the hours.
Yeah.
So it's just a basic don't stop thing. Then the other thing is what we've also chatted about is the network thing. Figure out who your friends are, because not everybody will be. But that said, there will be a hell of a lot of people who will be. And that's pretty damn wonderful. And the reward of going and playing a show with somebody that you respect or care about or like or whatever, regardless of how many people are in the room or how much money you've made or haven't made, or that reward is something very, very special. I'd also say try and record as much as you can. 100 different home studio options now and software, and this. I'm the world's worst engineer. It's not that my ears aren't good, and it's just I'm not very good at why does that not turn on, and this and that, and why is this muted, and 45 minutes of setup, and then I'll be able to press record, but I'm exhausted by then and I can't sing anymore or whatever. But if you if you can record, and if you can record with other people who push you, whether that be other musicians or engineers, producers, anybody on that side, be disciplined, put it in the diary, work towards it. And say, even if it's a case of you're very critical of your own work or whatever, set yourself some targets. Say, I need to have finished a song by next week, Wednesday. Cool. If it's a rubbish song, it's fine. Now and that's out of your system, and you keep moving, and you poach some parts from it, and you do another one by the next Wednesday, and I know you've done these projects. Actually, I've seen some of at one point you did a song a day thing, Instagram or something maybe, but it does help. It keeps you moving forward.
I think it's the concept of the creative faucet, where you have to get through all those bad ideas to get to the good ones. Yeah. I like that. So now, if anyone wants to hear your stuff or get in touch or be reviewed, where could they find you? So, what are your socials? On Facebook, just me is just Bruce Dennill. So Dennill has 2 N's and 2 L's, so Dennill. Bruce Dennill, that's just for friends, whatever, normal Facebook stuff. And then Bruce Dennill Music is a music-related Facebook page. So that's updates of, should gigs ever happen, gigs, recording and new songs and whatever's linked in, maybe punting in somebody else's song and just saying, oh, this is amazing. Although that'll happen on my Facebook page as well. And then, for reviews and stuff on Participate, that's brucedennill.co.za, Participate. And at the bottom, there's an email address which you can send stuff through to. And then there's loads of music also just under my name, Bruce Dennill, Dennill, stuff as a solo artist. And then I've done a lot of collaborations in the last couple of years. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff as well. Wherever you stream music, if you're streaming, then just put in my name, you'll find some stuff there. Wonderful. Thank you for coming on the show and chatting about all these things. It's so nice to see you.
Fantastic. It's been lovely to see you.
If you are an independent artist whose passion for what you do can inspire or fuel others, get in touch. I'd love to chat. You can find me on shotguntory.com.
You've been listening to another production from Solid Gold Podcasts.
Always be distracted by the noise. Challenge me to truth or dare. At least I know I'll fail with flair. Put me on the back foot, lose my poise. This wasn't in the script. I dreamed you different. I'd hoped to hear your soul in all the songs you sang for me. It wasn't on the cards to cross this distance towards a faint mirage that shimmers just beyond my reach. I am a man of simple needs. Melancholy soon recedes. Every time I see you, I feel happy. This wasn't in the script. I dreamed you different. I'd hoped to hear your soul in all the songs you sang for me. It wasn't on the cards to cross this distance towards a faint mirage that shimmers just beyond my reach. I'm not sure we have to understand this. Maybe we just need to feel the pain. I'm okay with something over nothing. Here to live with what we can't explain. Long lamented limerence, seeking sweet deliverance. I wouldn't change the padlock for the keys. This wasn't in the script.